Why every Khan replacement has failed in the Star Trek movies. For over 5 decades, Star Trek has introduced audiences to a galaxy filled with fascinating species, philosophical debates, and moral dilemmas. Yet when it comes to cinematic villains, one name still towers above all others: Khan Noonien Singh. First portrayed by Ricardo Montalban in Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan 1982, Khan became the ultimate Star Trek antagonist, a genetically engineered genius whose wrath was both operatic and personal. Every Star Trek movie since has, in some way, tried to recreate that same lightning-in-a-bottle combination of intelligence, intensity, and tragedy, but none have succeeded. From Nero in Star Trek 2009 to Shinzen in Star Trek, Nemesis, and even the rebooted Khan himself in Star Trek Into Darkness, each attempt to capture the spirit of Montalban's performance has missed the mark in a crucial way. The truth is, The Wrath of Khan was more than just a movie about vengeance. It was an emotional confrontation between age, legacy, and mortality. Every so-called Khan replacement failed not because the actors were bad, but because they misunderstood what made Khan such a perfect Star Trek villain in the first place. Let's dive into why every cinematic successor has fallen short of the legend. The Wrath of Khan, the blueprint that couldn't be replicated. Before dissecting the failures, it's worth revisiting why Khan worked so perfectly. Ricardo Montalban's performance was grand yet grounded, a Shakespearean villain cloaked in sci-fi. His Khan wasn't just evil, he was wounded. Betrayed by Captain Kirk, marooned for years on Ceti Alpha V, and stripped of his wife and people, Khan's thirst for revenge felt heartbreakingly human. When he snarled, "From hell's heart, I stab at thee," he wasn't just quoting Moby Dick. He was expressing decades of anguish compressed into one final act of fury. What made The Wrath of Khan so compelling was that the conflict between Kirk and Khan was deeply personal. It was about failure, aging, and obsession. Kirk was facing the limits of his command and his mortality, while Khan was consumed by vengeance. Both were reflections of each other, two brilliant men haunted by their choices. That emotional symmetry is what every later film forgot. Nero in Star Trek 2009, the angry miner that time forgot. J.J. Abrams' Star Trek 2009 was a bold reboot that revitalized the franchise for a new generation. It delivered heart-pounding space battles, humor, and an exciting new cast. But its villain Nero, played by Eric Bana, felt like an afterthought. Nero's motivation, revenge against Spock and the Federation for failing to save his planet Romulus, had potential. But the film treated him like a plot device, not a person. His character lacked nuance, and his rage came across as generic. Unlike Khan, who represented Kirk's mirror image, Nero was just there to cause chaos. The biggest issue was that Nero's story was told largely off-screen. His grief, his descent into madness, his years waiting in the past, all of it was relegated to tie-in comic Star Trek Countdown. In the actual movie, he's a one-dimensional brute whose primary role is to destroy Vulcan and give the heroes a reason to unite. Khan's story worked because his pain was felt. Nero's story didn't land because we never got to feel why he was angry. He was a plot function, not a character. Shinzen in Star Trek Nemesis 2002, the clone that missed the point. If Nero was forgettable, Shinzen was overthought. Star Trek Nemesis tried to deliver a dark, introspective story, a reflection of Picard facing a younger, angrier version of himself. On paper, it had all the right ingredients. A clone villain raised in darkness, fueled by bitterness and resentment, who serves as the physical embodiment of the Federation's moral compromises. But in execution, Shinzen, played by a young Tom Hardy, was never more than an echo of better Star Trek ideas. Shinzen was supposed to be to Picard what Khan was to Kirk, an intellectual equal with a deep emotional connection, but the script didn't develop their relationship enough for it to feel meaningful. The clone conceit was fascinating but hollow. Shinzen's motivations were muddled between a desire for identity, revenge, and conquest. Unlike Khan's personal vendetta, Shinzen's actions felt like a checklist of evil acts rather than an emotional journey. The film wanted to explore Picard's inner darkness, but never fully committed. Instead of a battle between two mirror souls, we got a warlord in an oversized ship. Nemesis aimed for Wrath of Khan and landed somewhere between Insurrection and Star Wars, Episode I. The rebooted Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness 2013, the copy without the context. When Benedict Cumberbatch was revealed to be Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness, it was meant to be a jaw-dropping twist. Instead, it became one of the most divisive moments in modern Star Trek history. Cumberbatch's performance was superb, cold, calculating, and intense, but he was trapped in a film that misunderstood what made Khan's story resonate. Rather than building a new version of the character rooted in this rebooted timeline, Into Darkness recycled Wrath of Khan's most iconic beats without earning them. The emotional stakes that made the original so powerful, years of betrayal, loss, and obsession, didn't exist here. This version of Khan barely knew Kirk or Spock. There was no shared history, no moral weight, just a name drop meant to invoke nostalgia. When Spock screamed Khan, it wasn't tragedy, it was parody. Even the movie's title hinted at misunderstanding. Into Darkness promised philosophical exploration, but delivered fan service wrapped in lens flare. Khan was used as shorthand for big bad guy, not as a mirror to the hero's soul. Ironically, Cumberbatch's Khan could have worked if he weren't Khan at all. His portrayal as a superhuman terrorist betrayed by Starfleet might have resonated more if the character had been new, a fresh villain who reflected the militarization of the Federation in Abrams' timeline. Instead, he was shackled to nostalgia he couldn't possibly fulfill. In Star Trek Beyond 2016, The Forgotten Soldier, Star Trek Beyond was a return to the franchise's spirit of exploration and optimism, and its villain, Idris Elba, had one of the most Star Trek-like backstories in decades. Once a Starfleet officer named Balthazar Edison, Krall became disillusioned after being abandoned and forgotten by the very institution he served. His transformation into a vengeful alien warlord symbolized the dangers of losing Starfleet's idealism. In theory, Krall was the kind of morally complex antagonist the series needed, a tragic figure whose pain reflected the darker side of the Federation's history. But again, execution failed the concept. Krall's motivations were buried under layers of makeup, exposition, and missed emotional beats. The film hinted at his bitterness, but never allowed it to unfold naturally. By the time his true identity was revealed, the story was already racing toward its explosive climax. Unlike Khan, whose vengeance unfolded with chilling purpose, Krall's plan was vague and inconsistent. His transformation could have been a profound commentary on how even Starfleet's best can lose faith in its mission, but it was lost amid action sequences and one too many Beastie Boys songs. Krall wasn't a bad villain. He was a wasted opportunity. The real lesson: you can't manufacture wrath. The reason every Khan replacement has failed isn't because Khan is unbeatable as a character. It's because the Wrath of Khan was never just about Khan. It was about the themes surrounding him: mortality, obsession, sacrifice, and the cost of command. Every subsequent Star Trek movie tried to recreate Khan's impact instead of his purpose. They focused on revenge plots, super weapons, and tragic monologues, but forgot the soul of what made Wrath of Khan timeless: the emotional reckoning between two men facing their own mortality. Khan wasn't great because he was powerful. He was great because he forced Kirk to confront who he was. No later villain has truly challenged their hero on that same existential level. Shinzen was a clone, not a reflection. Nero was angry, not personal. Krall was tragic, not transformative. And Cumberbatch's Khan was brilliant, but disconnected. Until Star Trek finds a